The Tumacacari mission. We'll have to find out what that is later. Cliff, what is this building over here?
That building used to be the nunnery, and that was built after our Santa Cruz and Romero families left. The church is our family. I have the original Catholic records from this church from Father Kiernan McCarty of the Tucson Catholic Diocese, and he showed me the original Catholic records. I made a Xerox copy of them, and it shows where at least 2 generations of all of our Spanish ancestors, 3 families worth, were all baptized in this church and in Guavavi just down the road. Most of them lived at Tubac because that's where the military garrison was, but this was where the Catholics did their religious ordinances. And when I was here 2 years ago, that whole right-hand side, bottom right-hand side that's been plastered up now, that was all open. And right behind there was the original baptismal font, almost 250 years old, where our ancestors were baptized. Now thank heavens, they've plastered it up and protected it. I need to go see if the original baptismal font is still there now.
Let's go see.
Our ancestors were baptized in.
Same place our ancestors walked.
This is the door our ancestors walked through right here to do the baptisms for their children. Santa Cruz and Romero's were the 2 big ones, and some of the Moraleses. Santa Cruz and Romero were the 2 big families of ours, our direct ancestors, used this church for their religious Catholic ordinances. It's still here. 250 years later, Mom.
This is what the real thing of what we saw, the replica on the inside. You can still see the impressions on the sides where the statuettes resided. Here is that same hallway where our ancestors walked down to be baptized and to be married. Right down through the chapel. No paintings left here, are there?
The paint got chipped off.
I'm recording yet. Now we are.
Okay. Our Spanish ancestors, the Santa Cruzes, the Morenos, and the Romeros, were in the Spanish military garrison here with their wives and children from Spain. Okay? And they had the indigent people build the church, like you saw in the video. And because our indigent people were Hohokam, Pima, they were the ones that built this church, and these are the fingerprints of when they built these blocks 250 years ago to build this church. So it's not likely, but it's possible that our cousins or whatever, aunts or uncles, or even our grandparents, 7, 8 generations ago, that might be their fingerprints. When they built this block to build this church, to baptize their families and to marry their families. And we are the result of those marriages. And this in here, Chuck, is what I was telling you about. Gone. You took it. Those hot dogs took it. Let me tell them about it anyway. Come here, Mom. Come with me. Okay? When I was here 25 years ago, the original baptismal font stood right here. The original baptismal font that was over 200 years old stood right here. And this was the font where our Mama's ancestors were baptized, our Spanish and Pima Indian ancestors. When I was here a few years ago to some meetings in Tucson, I came back and this whole wall out here had been broken in. And so I was concerned, you can see where they've plastered it up and where they rebuilt it. And I was concerned that the original baptismal font was going to be taken away. And it looks like they did. I'm glad, because that means it's probably preserved somewhere. But to actually be able to touch the original baptismal font where Modesto Eladio Santa Cruz and Mariana Gonzalez baptized their children, it was right here. They stood right here with the priest, right here, and baptized Juan Santa Cruz, who did the paintings at Santa Vera Mission. This is where he was blessed, baptized as a baby, in this room right here. There used to be paintings all up in there, but of course they've long gone, they've been stuccoed over. The home of your ancestors, Mom.
That is what she looked like many, many years ago. And now here she is. Walking down the same aisle.
Pretty cool stuff. Whenever they said their prayers, this is where they would put their candles. It was over here. There was usually a statue of the Virgin Mary right in there. And they would put their candles there, and then they would kneel here and say their prayers about their problems of raising their kids or being in the military, fighting against the Apaches. Right here is where our ancestors knelt and prayed to protect their family. A lot of our family history right here at Tumac. Everybody says, Santa Vera, that's our church. Well, that's our church, but this was our church before Santa Vera was our church. And Guavavi was before this. Or it was our church at the same time as this.
Do we have the picture?
That's the original paint up there, Chuck. That's the original paint.
It sure looks like original paint. It does. Oh, the old ribs. At the back door, or the side door. Graveyard of the priests. We're now at number 14.
And number 14 is the courtyard, where they used to play their games, and I don't have the page where number 14 is at. I do know it's the courtyard. Where?
It's the bowling alley.
Yeah, it's the bowling alley where they used to bowl. It was just mainly used for the busy hub of life. Be gone, and don't let that thing bite you.
Here we are, number 12.
Okay, number 12 is the cemetery, the mortuary chapel, and we need to walk around so you can see the inside of it.
This is the mortuary chapel?
Yeah, this is where they did the masses for the funeral masses and the what do they call? This is where they did the funerals. The funeral masses. In the inside, there's a place where there was wood beams, and which was served as the roof. But they said that, or they think that originally it was supposed to have a dome to it. But this is where they did all the funerals, the masses for the funerals. And they put crosses in the little niches in the walls. This is the mortuary chapel. Ready?
Ready.
This is the cemetery. This is the second cemetery. The original cemetery, they don't know what happened to it because it was destroyed by cattle and weather, and they were never able to find the mission era graves. It was destroyed long ago. The niches in the walls, there's 14 niches, and they had crosses in each one of the niches. The last burial that was done here was done in 1916, which I'm assuming is that little green grave right over there, because it's the only grave that has been identified, and it was Juanita Alegria, I think. Alegria.
Alegria.
Alegria. And she was buried in 1916. Bullet holes, doesn't it?
This looks like bullet holes, and I would just imagine that this is where they performed some executions, right here next to the graveyard.
And that's very possible because it says that this area was used for a corral during cattle drives and roundups. And it's very possible they might have shot a couple of cattle rustlers right there. Or we can only guess what that is.
Coming back out past the courtyard, we're headed to the granary.
The granary, which is right next to, it's behind the cemetery.
Oh, interesting. Look.
Yes. This is where they stored their foodstuffs including beans, corn, small game, wild animals, that sort of thing, fruit. They kept the grain, etc., in the pots along the walls. They had different shelves and etc. to keep all of the foodstuffs. Then the stairs that you're standing on, Chuck, led to a loft, and these holes in the walls were beams, and that was a floor. There was actually a floor. This led up to the loft, and in the loft is where they kept the extra food for, you know, future use. They kept animal fodder, which is hay and things like that for the animals, and the extra food, and it was kept in baskets and clay pots. And the mission was a communal system of growing and collecting and distributing, so they had to feed a lot of people. They kept dried fruit, and they dried the meat before they placed it in the containers and they used it during the non-growing season. Now we're on the path to the lime kiln. And this is, I have not seen this yet, but sounds very interesting.
The other side of the courtyard. And I apologize, unfortunately with the sun it's hard to see in the viewer exactly what it is I'm seeing. This is the lime kiln.
This is where they made the plaster that they covered the adobe with to protect it from moisture and the weather and that kind of thing. This is what they covered the entire church with, this plaster that they made in this kiln. And the way they did it was they would put rocks in the kiln and make a fire in with them. When the rocks got hot and expanded, they would crack. And when they would crack, they were able to pound them into a powder. And then they took the powder, added water to it, and made a plaster out of it. And that's what they used on the adobe to keep it from the weather.
Go.
I'm Ted Treat. I believe I'm the last of the Treat name, and I come down from Salmon Adnasia through Frank Shrewsbury Treat, snuck into the family somehow. And my dad was Frank Treat, about the third